The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Joanne Mercier. Hi, Joanne.
Hello, Dom.
And Father Cory Stiga. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks. So, folks, as you're receiving this, it's Lent in 2021. Yes, Lent did end in 2020 at Easter. It didn't feel like it, but it did.
Longest Lent ever.
I actually saw a great meme online of that scene from, what was it, Captain America, it was in the Captain America Winter Soldier, where Captain America is lapping the guy who plays Falcon. Mm-hmm. They're running around the mall, and the Falcon says, March 2021, and Captain America is labeled March 2020. It's coming around again. So, well, the reason I bring that up, but and our first topic for today is we're approaching the second year of doing church online. So you could say that have live streaming masses for many people. Most parishes in the U.S. at least are still live streaming masses of some sort, even while having in person, in many cases, limited attendance masses. It was, I think, the Archdiocese of Seattle was the first one to go online only, almost exactly a year ago from this, the mid-February, and then the rest of us followed eventually. And so one of the things I wanted to do was talk about lessons learned, how we're doing, what kind of things, experiences people have had. And I do want to mention an article that I saw in Ars Technica, which basically it describes what's been going on as a problem that's cropped up, which is a disparity between the haves and have-nots in American churches. Wealthier churches, whether it's Catholic parishes that have more money versus less money, or just bigger Protestant churches versus small congregations, and the ability to get the technology online and to be able to do this sort of thing, whether it's money or the age of the community or whatnot, there's been a big disparity. So I wanted to get into this. How's it going? And I know both of you have slightly different experiences with this topic. So I wanted to go with you first to ask how it's going for you. Father Cory, why don't you go first? How's it going for you in your parishes?
Well, and it's interesting because my Diocese of Great Falls Billings, was probably one of the last, if not the last. I don't think it was the last, but one of the last to shut down, because in February, March, April, Montana really wasn't getting hit with this as badly as places like Seattle, like Boston, other larger cities. Most of the midsection of the United States was pretty well unscathed at that point. Still, there were cases, but nothing to the level of what the big cities and what we saw later. We had our real first wave, up to November, so that's when our real first wave hit. So we shut down late, and we were the first diocese to reopen after only 6 weeks. So we didn't have a long period where we didn't have public masses. But I did do the live streaming at that point as quickly as I could, and it worked as well as you could expect. I mean, it was, something I literally threw my laptop next to me as I was celebrating Mass in my private chapel. I mean, that's basically what I did. It was about as simple as it could. I know there are a few parishes in this diocese that are still doing it, but by and large, we're kind of back to status quo. The bigger concern is numbers of people coming to Mass, because, of course, those who are more concerned about COVID aren't coming. They're not required to. Our obligation, like everywhere else in the country, or pretty much everywhere else in the country, is still suspended. We do not have the obligation to attend Mass on Sundays. And so those who don't feel comfortable with it aren't coming. But by and large, at least my little parishes, our numbers aren't that dramatically down compared to previous years. So
do you see a utility for this post the lockdown, post-COVID, however it remains with us in the future? Do you see a utility for this in your type of, because you have very rural parishes and you have people spread out all over. Do you see a utility for live streaming in your situation?
I do actually, and maybe not so much from my parish in particular. Maybe not from here in Cascade, Montana, Sacred Heart Church, but like the diocese is now opening, has just finally. Well, they're a little slow, but they, sorry, Bishop, if you hear that, but yeah, it should have been done a while ago, a YouTube channel for the purpose of doing stuff like live streaming services and things like that. And that I could see more of a benefit on a diocesan level, especially in this diocese. By land wise, we are the fourth largest diocese in the country. We're 94,000 square miles, so we could use things like these technologies for outreach within our diocese. For Bishop's going to do Lenten conferences where he's going to, I don't know if they're going to be half an hour long or whatever, but where he's going to be giving these conferences in person, and then they're going to be recorded and posted on YouTube, things like that. So
Ordination Mass, that sort of stuff.
Ordination Masses, Chrism Masses coming up here, and that's going to be a reduced occupancy. So that's something that they could put up there, stuff like that. So I do definitely see the benefit of it, and I can see larger parishes doing it, both for their community and again for the region as a whole. So I do see the benefit of it. It's just does every parish need to have live streaming? I don't think so. Again, not in this situation where we're not that restricted here compared again to other places.
Okay. Joanne, how about you? How's it going for you going into our second year?
Well, it's been interesting. I mean, we didn't jump on the bandwagon right away at the collaborative in which I work in. In fact, we waited until the beginning of May before we began live streaming, but that was only because yours truly here was saying, we really need to do something. We really need to do something, because I was watching what was going on in the parishes around us. And they were all coming online, and they were all doing their Sundays. And I'm sitting there going, where are our people going? Because we're in a highly, we're inner city. We're highly, density of Catholic churches. There's like 2 on every corner. So it's very easy for people to start getting used to attending Mass, even virtually, somewhere else. And our collections, and I started thinking like a pastor, our collections are going down. So we need to bring this community together. So I finally talked my co-pastors into it, and I started with an iPad, my small iPad Pro, and a Behringer 4-channel mixer to get their microphones in, at least, and the music. And then I finally talked them into, can we get some cameras? Because we already had a security camera set up in the church. So I figured it'd be easy to feed off that, start with that, because there was already lines in the wall. So we did, and of course the angst was, who's going to pay for this? And I said, well, why don't you just put it out for donations? And we got the money and more. So we've been able to fix things with it once we put it in, because when we first put it in, it was because it's an IP streaming cameras. So, but immediately people came back. Eyeballs were on Facebook, and Facebook is not my preferred. I would much rather do YouTube, but I find that the older folks, the ones who really want to go to Mass, I hate to say it that way, are all on Facebook because of their grandchildren and their families, where the younger families are on YouTube because that's what the media they're used to. So I will stream it on Facebook and then take it, render it, and put it on YouTube later. And I find that I get as many eyeballs on each one. But we missed Triduum and Holy Week last year. So now this is our first year that we're going to attempt to do this. So it's going to be very interesting. But what it did for us was bring our community together again. And that's what we need to. Now, we had for a long time only had 100 people in the pew in a 500-seater church. Now we can go up to 40%. So it's going to be interesting with the sacraments coming up again this year, that now they want to have less celebrations, because we had 5 First Communions last year and 2 confirmation. This year we're going to do 2 First Communions and 1 confirmation. I'm like, okay, we have to rearrange the seating. Oh, no, we can't. I said, yeah, we can, because we're up to 40% now. So we can rearrange. What happens if we go back to, we take it one step at a time. But it really did bring us as a collaborative together, because we're 3 parishes. Now, where we go from here, I don't know. I've said privately, and now I'm going to say it publicly, that when we're allowed to really come back to church, I think we should take a month off. And that doesn't mean I don't want to stream again, but I think we need to take a month off and have an initiative that says, now it's time to come back to church. To be here present. And we'll continue 1 live stream a week, but it'll be for those who are really homebound. Because we've forgotten those people, and those people are so thankful to us right now, at least in my situation, that we're doing that. So I don't want to leave them, in the dust when this is over.
I think before all of this happened, the homebound were, like in our diocese in Boston, in Massachusetts in general, Catholic TV has a daily mass, and we were like, they can watch that. We kind of just like, yeah.
Of course, there's EWTN. Everybody's, every cable system now has EWTN, or most do, or you can get it online, so people watch it there too. So,
but what my secretary has heard from because she talks mostly to the homebound, is we are so grateful that we can see Monsignor and Father now and see one of our churches. And it's our people up there. They are so happy to see that it
makes
made
a difference.
All the angst that I've just gone through with this whole thing worth it.
Well, and that's what I heard too, is a lot of people said, it's one thing. Yes, we can watch it on, Catholic TV is available on the internet. EWTN is on cable systems and on the internet and things like that. We can watch from the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in DC, but it's something different when it's coming from our parish. It's coming from our church. I purposely did the Triduum over in the main church, even though we were still shut down, so that people could see our church, our parish.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things I did was I threw this up on Facebook, and I'll put a link to my Facebook post in show notes. I threw up on Facebook the question about how's it going? What lessons have you learned? How did it happen in your parish? And I got some really good feedback from folks that I'd like to share. First one was my friend Paul B. He said some priests have a style of celebrating Mass on live stream, a style akin to an Islamic State hostage video, which I just thought was funny.
Yeah,
but yes, it's very stilted. Yes, we're all learning this. It's all new to us. We're all trying to figure this out. Yep. Then another friend wrote that in his parish, they're doing live stream. So that's really well. So that from the church. But one of the things they started doing was broadcasting the Mass on radio. So over the terrestrial radio, so people can listen in their cars. Although you could do that streaming on Facebook or whatever. People could have, if they had their phones in their cars, they could stream it there. But they're broadcasting it from the side door of the church, so that then the priest can then bring communion to the people in the cars, which is interesting.
Yeah, I know of a parish in our area that is outside of the church, still in 20-degree weather, doing an outside Mass 2 times a weekend with gloves. I don't know if that's liturgical or not. Yet, and they do it by the cars, but the people do get out of their cars to go to communion.
Interesting.
So they do come up, at least to give them a stretch and get up and go get communion and go back to their nice warm cars. They're happy with that. It's worked for them.
Good. Another friend said that his parish has been live streaming since 2016, and they use the Boxcast service, which is a paid service. They give you equipment. They have the streaming box and everything. And it's so if your parish has the funds, has the ability, and a lot of them, like you said, can ask people now, you can get a really nice professional setup and have the nice cameras, the nice box, and it's got all of the software and everything for streaming. And so at his parish, they're streaming 1 Sunday Mass a week. Oh, no, they increased it from 1 a week to 2 per day and 3 on the weekend. They're also streaming weddings, funerals, missions, vespers, that sort of thing, which I think is great. I think, in fact, I would love to see again, after all this finishes, the parish, the people still streaming weddings and funerals and stuff for people friends and family who live far away to be able to participate in those masses.
I totally agree with that.
And like I said, I do think there's going to be a place for stuff like that. And especially, again, things like Vespers, evening prayer. We've lost the mindset of our parishes do evening prayer publicly on Sunday. That's completely gone. That doesn't happen anywhere.
Right. Yeah. I remember in Advent and Lent, my parish was doing it, but in this times they although my parish is starting, they're going to start doing stations in a way. So I don't know if they're going to live stream it, but it'll be nice. So another commenter said that their diocese, and she happens to be in the Knoxville diocese, is providing resources to make sure each parish can live stream. And that's one of the things I think is important. Is I was curious, and I haven't gotten a lot of feedback on this, how much support parishes are getting from their diocese, technical support, never mind resources, and both of you seem to say you haven't gotten much.
I will say basically, especially even in my diocese, or especially in my diocese, but they don't have a clue. I mean, I made a little jab about it, but they're a year behind in setting up a YouTube channel for the diocese.
Right.
They should have done this a year ago, and just now this week, they set up a YouTube channel for the diocese. That shows how much support they've got. I hate to say it, I'm probably one of the most tech-savvy people in the diocese, at least in an official capacity.
And in my diocese, we have had a YouTube channel, I think, since this whole thing began, because there are some tech-savvy folks in the chancery, so they actually have been. But as far as a central office, anything like that, no, because I don't want to be a critic, but I will be just a little bit, that people sometimes don't know where to point the camera during a live stream.
That's an important thing, yeah.
That's important, especially when you're dealing with liturgical movement. I had to get my priest to tell me ahead of time if they were using incense, because once they didn't. And I had to tell them, look, I need to know where to point the camera. You walk off and I have no idea where you've just gone, because I'm watching you through a lens. And so
you're remote. You're not in the church.
No, sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm there. Sometimes, see, I set it up so I could do it remotely. But you still got to tell me, because if you walk off frame, I have no idea what you've just done. But if I know you're going to get the incense, I can do a wider shot so people can see that, because I'm their eyes and ears right now. So if I know where you are, then I know where to go.
That's an important thing. Like I kind of jokingly said this a while ago. Like I don't know whether it was on this show or on online, but there is a new role of a new ministerial role of the liturgical cameraman. I mean, it sounds silly, but it's true. And it's a vital role, and there needs to be training. There needs to be guidelines for how to do this. Like in my own parish, the guy who's doing is great, and he's been thrown into this. He does event streaming professionally, and he's been doing this for the parish, which is awesome. But, like during the prayers of the offertory, where the priest is doing the inaudible prayers, on the altar, and music is being played by the organist, he's got the camera on the organist. It doesn't matter if the action is on the altar. Don't turn to the organist. We don't want, this isn't a TV show. You need to be focused on what's important and knowing what is the right thing to do at the right time. That's the sort of thing where guidelines need to be given.
Well, I do both, because I have picture in picture.
Right.
So I'm able to do both, so that I can then move to something else, so I can set the camera for the next shot. Sometimes it's all about, I have to be somewhere else because I have to set up the next shot.
Yeah, that's where having a wide angle and a close up and that sort of thing is good. One of the things that I wanted to kind of maybe get into at this point is talk about the equipment. A lot of places people started with phones. That's all they had.
Phones or laptops,
and they had a phone or a laptop or an iPad. In my parish, we have camcorders on tripods, and he's got two. He had three, now he has two, but in the middle, right, center aisle, because there's an offertory box now in the middle for people to give their offertory. He's got mounted on it with a clamp, a phone. So he's got a phone in the middle for the wide shot, and then two tripod-mounted camcorders on left and right. But he has to run back and forth, adjusting them all the time, which is tricky. You could use a DSLR if you have that, and along with something called an Elgato Cam Link, which is it connects lots of different cameras like DSLRs to a laptop or that sort of system. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. That's, I've heard, really good. Or more expensive is a PTZ, which is short for Point Telephoto Zoom. And I think if in a long term, if you do this live streaming on a long-term basis, that's probably where you want to go, because you mount those semi-permanently, like on a pillar, on a wall, in the choir loft, or whatever you have, and then you can zoom in, pan, which is left and right, tilt up and down, and you get a lot more flexibility, and then you don't have to run around adjusting cameras in the shot. You can just do it all from one spot. Yeah,
that's what I have. I have the PTZ optics. And the only thing about them, and I love them, they're 20 times zoom, they're great, but the housing that we put them on, and we put them on regular housing, if the church is windy, okay, if the wind is coming from that direction, it's a shaky cam.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
So now we have to consider getting something that's a little bit more sturdier, but I don't know if that's going to affect the moving around of the camera. I don't know. But we've gotten shaky cam quite a bit.
Or a stabilizer. So like with the microphone, it's stabilizer. It's got a, if the tripod bounces, or the, in my case, the microphone boom arm bounces, the microphone is kind of suspended, and hopefully that, but yeah, that's something to be considered. And that's the sort of thing where a diocesan office dedicated to this sort of thing, or even if the diocese contracted with a company, a consulting company, could help parishes with this sort of thing. Otherwise, you're kind of left to figure it out on your own. I mean, my diocese, I've heard from the folks that work there saying, hey, if you know anyone who's willing to be paid to help parishes, let me know, because we're willing to pay people to help parishes, because parishes are looking for help. So that's the sort of thing, if this is something you do, you might contact your diocese and let them know you're willing to help. Well,
and one thing I want to kind of address, going back to the original article, he set up what I think is kind of a false dichotomy, and that's the dichotomy of the rich versus the poor. And I say that's false because, like you said, Joanne, you can ask for the money and the money shows up. That's the secret of the Catholic Church, is it's not the money we actually have in our hands. It's the money that everybody else has that they're willing to give, but you have to ask for it. And I would argue, my experience is it's more the size of the parish, it's more the tech savviness of the parish. I could imagine parishes in some place like Silicon Valley. They have no problem getting people to set this stuff up, because they've got geeks all over the place and that go to the church there, regardless of what age has a lot to do with it. Most of the parishes, especially the small parishes in my diocese, most people are older. They don't really know these technologies. Again, I'm probably the most tech savvy, but then again, we do have younger families, and maybe some of these younger families have some ideas that they're able to help out with that. And I would argue that's more the concern, is the tech experience of your parish, what people have, the comfort with tech that they have. And I like I said, smaller parishes generally don't have that. And so I would, that's where I would love to get like one of these PTZ setups for my church here in Cascade, because I got the perfect spot to mount it, but I would have to have someone running it, because it's really hard to do that when you're standing at the altar celebrating Mass.
Exactly.
Right. That is a huge problem. I will tell you, though, in the case of us with our donations, we only received 4 donations for these cameras. And I believe it was timing, because we had been without any kind of connection with these folks for a few months. And then I got up there with my iPad, and I think people were like, well, the iPad's nice, but it's not cutting it. So we created the need, and these 4 donors stepped up. And they were not young. They were not from young families. These were from some of our more older, established parishioners, but they came forward.
I mean, obviously not exact number, but Joanne, what would you say it cost your parish roughly to set up?
Roughly, it cost us $10,000. Roughly. Wow. Okay, and that was good, because again, if there was a diocesan office, you had to go look for people at the time. So we were word of mouthing it from parish to parish and diocese to diocese, saying, who did you use? What did they cost? And I priced some out where some were telling me for one camera, they were going to charge me $7,000 for setup. And I got
PTZ cameras are
right, and I got 2 cameras but not a controller. I'm using OBS software, the Open Broadcasting System,
which is
on
great.
a Windows machine. So there you save a little bit of money, I think it's more flexible than trying to use a controller that in 3 years you're gonna need a new one because the technology gets better.
A PTZ camera, so a dedicated camera that's built for this, is going to be a few $1,000s each at minimum, $2,000-$3,000, and then you need the controller system, the computer, and the software, whatever. And so it is going to. So that's one of the reasons why you don't see more of these is because they're expensive.
Yeah, the 10 was for everything though.
Yep.
Okay, the cameras themselves were $2 apiece, $2,000 apiece.
Which that's not bad, actually. I mean,
no.
Because, this is something we've discussed, like here at SQPN, where we don't do a lot of video because video gets expensive. It's time consuming. It's a lot more work than the audio that we're able to do. And you can take that with a Parish. If you want a Parish stream, yes, you could take like one of these our Logitech, 920 webcams, 930 webcams, put them on a tripod, and you could stream acceptable. It would be, you could see, you could hear, but it would be pretty potato quality compared to what you can do with, say, that $10,000 setup.
Right. That's one of the things is with video is because it's not just the camera too. You also need the lighting, and like my parish has added extra lighting for the altar. Altars are generally well lit, but you need even more lighting for video work. And then the sound and getting the sound in acceptably so that it's not echoing. It's actually coming in lit and sounds good. All these things make it difficult to do.
Yeah, we have a modern room, so it's very well lit. So we didn't have to worry about that. Audio has been our biggest problem, and it's been latency issues with the internet. So we finally hardwired everything in. And I'm still getting latency issues, and I'm still trying to figure out what's the problem. Is it the internet buckling or, spitting up or something?
And that's the other thing is getting good internet into the church. A lot of churches are big stone boxes that filter out radio waves. So you can't just rely on, so you got to run a cable, internet cable into the church and have the church wired, which I think would be great. I think churches should be. In fact, I think churches should have Wi-Fi available for the parishioners because all of our churches don't have missalettes anymore. They've been all removed. And so if you want to follow along in the readings or the prayers, you need to have it on your phone and having, a Wi-Fi signal there because, again, big stone box blocks out the cell phone signals because it can sometimes be hard to get a signal in some of these. It would be nice to be able to have that service available for folks.
Yeah, there are a lot of churches that they just don't have any kind of internet at all. The office might, the parish hall might, but the actual sanctuary itself, the actual church itself, no.
In the case of the parish where I live in and not work in, they ported over. They tried to port it over by putting a repeater in the window of the rectory so that it goes over into the church. We keep telling the pastor, you need to put it in the church because he keeps dropping his live stream. It keeps dropping on him on Facebook. But he still is like, well, when this is over, we're not sure we're going to do this. And I think that's the key. Those who were sure, like where I work, said, we're going to go in for the long haul. Those who are still seeing it as a temporary solution are not so quick to do it. Because the money is there. My parish at home is poor, and people are willing to give him money to do this, but he's still in the temporary mindset.
Yeah, there is a long haul that's the difference is the long haul versus the short term, and there are a lot of cases to be made for why this is sort of having some sort of streaming ability is a future thing that we'll want to keep doing, whether or not we have to be, quarantined or what have you. There's case to be made of doing this sort of thing long term. But one of the questions that came up is well, if we keep streaming masses forever, will people just never, will some people never go back and just assume watching the stream is equivalent to attending?
That's the problem. I think that's going to be the long-term problem. Now, if I can put my real hat on, which is faith formation director and not social media director, I had a parent meeting last night in which I was telling families, when it's safe to come back, you really need to bring your children to the physical church, because they need to know how to respond here, not just at home with a cup of coffee or the cereals and the, in the bathrobe. We have to come back to that again. That's why I'm still an advocate for closing down a live stream for a month or so, to get and to have welcoming masses where we want you back. We're happy you're back.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. That's a great idea.
And I don't know if I'm not to criticize the decision to do the month off. I don't know if that's necessary, but I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think it's a good way to saying, you need to come back. I do believe this very much a method of an opportunity for catechesis, because we were already struggling with Catholics not coming to Mass as it was. We were already struggling with low attendance percentages, low attendance numbers, low collections, even before COVID hit. And so this is a good opportunity to now reach out to those who are doing live streaming. And I really do think it needs to be an outreach. It can't just, it has, taking the time out from live stream is good, but I think there needs to be an outreach, direct outreach to these parishioners. If we have their contact information, email, texting, whatever, messaging, whatever, contact them. Hey, by the way, the restrictions have been lifted, or we're up to, 80% now, 75% now. We can have a lot more people coming in. Come join us. And oh, by the way, the bishop has said in a month or two, the obligation is going to be restored. And so once again, it will be under, we have that obligation as well to be coming to Mass for the worship of God. And live stream doesn't cut it. Live stream TV Masses does not cut it for the obligation.
I totally agree with that.
I figured you would. But
yeah, because we need to create, and I don't want to get too theological, but we need to create that hunger again for both community and Eucharist. That's the point. So during Lent, I'm doing a 5-part series on Facebook for the liturgies of Holy Week and Triduum, so folks can, get a little explanation on those liturgies. But I'm also looking to trying to interact with my system. OBS has a program called Ninja, or an add-on called Ninja. And what I want to do is point a camera at me before Masses begin on the weekend to give them some explanation, what's going on, and then point the camera. Because right now, all we're doing is pointing the camera in church, but we're really not interacting with the folks. And I think there needs to be...
is a substitute for like Skype or Meet-In or Zoom. It works similarly by having people in different places being able to be on the stream at once. Yeah. One of the things I would suggest, when parishes do go back to in person is as I would send out a postcard to every registered family that has, all of the Mass times, all of the things the parish is doing, the stuff you can do. When I worked in a parish a few years ago, we just, at the beginning of Lent, we sent out a postcard to every registered family with all of the stuff that's happening during Lent, including we did like Wednesday, we called the Light is On For You campaign for confessions. And we heard from a lot of people who hadn't been back to church in 20 years. And when I got the postcard, it made me want to go again. And I think that sort of direct outreach can really reconnect people. So, I mean, it's not really... It's old school technology. It's analog, but it's still, worthwhile. A nicely designed, graphically designed postcard sent to everyone. I think you're right. We do need to call people back. We need to bring people together again and encourage them to remember that in person is, if we can, is definitely better than streaming.
And by the way, this is something too where we can use our parishioners, those who are coming to Mass now. We can use, as priests, as faith formation directors, and say, go invite your neighbors. People that aren't coming to Mass because they're concerned about COVID or whatever reason. This is a good time to say, hey, the church is opening up again. It's safe to come to church. Come join us.
Right. But of course that's still a ways off, and so we're kind of anticipating, looking forward, and who knows when that time will be. For many of us. But I do love the fact that with the live streaming, I have heard that there are a lot of people who haven't been to church in many years who have been tuning into live stream Masses because they can, and I love that aspect as well. All right, we could probably talk much more about this, but I do want to move on. I do want to encourage listeners to go, check out that Facebook, the link in the show notes to the Facebook conversation about this. Add your comments there. Send us your comments, in the, to technology@sqpn.com. Let us know, what lessons you've learned if you're involved in live streaming masses of your parish, or what you've anticipated, and if you're with a diocese, what you're doing for your parishes, that sort of thing. We want to hear from you. All right, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Cynthia A., Melanie Q., Gary J., Christopher P., and Thomas V. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. Now's a great time to become a StarQuest patron, thanks to a generous gift from a StarQuest supporter. When you start a new Patreon monthly pledge at sqpn.com/give, the first 3 months will be matched by an equal amount from our donor, which makes your gift go even further. So if you've been thinking of becoming a StarQuest patron, now's the time. Visit sqpn.com/give today. So let's talk about some headlines. Our first one is concerning Amazon. Amazon, the company that we all rely on, that we're all a little, wary of.
Yes.
Yes. This one involves their how they treat their employees, which they've kind of become notorious about the way their employees are treated. And this one has to do with the delivery drivers. They've apparently instituted a monitoring system in their trucks, of course, Big Brother. And it's an AI camera or AI system that monitors driver behavior and wants to flag safety issues, which seems good, except apparently it's an overzealous system. So, for example, drivers who talk about the app mostly just invades their privacy or miscalculates dangerous driving behavior. One driver said that even though he didn't answer his phone was ringing, he got docked for using a phone while driving. Another worker was flagged for distracted driving at every delivery stop she made. Some guys have resorted to wrapping their phone in a towel and shoving it in the glove box, so that, because the app is on the phone that's monitoring them, shoving it in the glove box so that it doesn't trigger. Amazon kind of promotes it among the drivers as a friendly competition, so you get the most points, but they can lose their job if they're too distracted, if it gets too bad. So what do y'all think of this little thing, and perhaps the wider implications for other jobs?
Oh boy, I'd be figuring out how to disable it very quickly.
Yeah, and I like technology that's used for good and not evil.
Yes.
And I wonder if they're just trying to monitor their employees and not, because, I see them when they come deliver the copious things I get to my door. And some of them are basically clicking a picture and running, which is telling me they're behind, and that means they're trying to catch up. And that's not good either. You can't have unrealistic expectations of your employees and use the app to say, well, you need to do this.
It makes them less safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have real concern about being tracked in this, that these drivers are being tracked to this level of detail. It's similar to like the little plug-in things for your cars for the insurance companies where it tracks, safe driving and all that. That just seems like a bad idea in general, because then it gives them a lot, like this article mentions, it gives them a lot of latitude to say what is safe driving and what isn't. And that can have real consequences financially. It can have real consequences, in many ways. And at one point, the article says is, I would rather them learning how to drive safe than learning how to game the app. And that's human reaction. Human reaction is going to be fine. If I'm going to lose bonuses, if my job's at risk because of what this stupid app says, I'm going to do everything to make that app happy, which means they're spending more time watching the app than they are the road.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is the end of the law of unintended consequences. You're trying to get safe driving, but what you're doing is people trying to game an app and trying to placate an app and finding ways around it, and that's not better. So, I mean, I want safer driving, certainly, but this may not be the way to do it. All right, so let's move to our next headline. This one is interesting. So for a long time, Waze, the Waze traffic directions driving app, and the Google Maps apps have let you report accidents or road hazards or that sort of thing. It looks like Apple Maps is going to start getting that too, which would be good because I've actually preferred Waze over Apple Maps on my iPhone for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So, well, here's the thing too: is Waze was bought out a couple of years ago by Google. That's how Google Maps got it. And I've had this happen when I was on retreat a couple of weeks ago, or went for a retreat. As I was traveling there, I was driving, and there were a couple of times where I had Google up with directions, and there's a speed trap ahead. It's like, oh, thank you very much. And sure enough, there was one of the Pennsylvania's friendliest folks sitting there in the median watching.
It's nice to have these things, but I'm a little worried about people, while they're driving, trying to manipulate these controls to report stuff.
That's the difficult part. Because I find with Waze, when I do use it, now I'm trying to find, okay, where's the thing I have to click in order to say that there's an accident here or report that traffic is slowing down. I was in a hit and run last month, and I had a rental car for 2.5 weeks, and it had CarPlay. And I was so happy.
Nice.
Because I got to see how CarPlay works. And if Apple Maps is now going to start to do that, that's going to take care of trying to find the Waze app,
right,
and activating it. And because it's right there. And in CarPlay, you can have maps and two other apps going on at the same time. So to have 3 things like that. But the only thing is Waze screams at you. At least with Apple Maps, hopefully it would be your Siri voice that would be saying, this is what's happening. But it's that lovely lady on Waze, caution ahead. And, I'm jumping out of my seat.
Yeah.
Because then I got to try to control that. So, yeah, if Apple Maps can do the same thing, I'd be all over it.
Yeah. See, the nice thing is, I think on Google, if I remember right, you'd long press the screen and it gives you the option to do, the reporting. Of course, also, we talk, of course, about speed traps, cops running radar. But also, things like accidents. You can report if there's a slowdown because of an accident, if the roads are bad. If you're driving along and all of a sudden you hit patch of ice, you can report that. Things like that. So it's not just speed trap. Of course, that's what most people use it for, is like, oh, cop, don't want to get busted.
No, I used it for pre-pandemic. It was always between 2:00 and 4:00 in Rhode Island going through Providence. You had to know how far the backup was. Pandemic time, not so much. But before that, yeah, you needed to know.
Yeah, I used to like reporting, road construction or that sort of thing, or sometimes closed roads. So that would help other people, when it rerouted people around it. That would be good. But in Massachusetts, you're not allowed to even touch your phone anymore. So that's
right.
It makes it even more difficult. So I will deny anyone who accuses me of touching my phone while driving.
Well, I wonder though if again, Siri, or I think Google can do it as well. You can do Google report an accident, report a speed trap. That
would be nice, because the Waze you can't do the voice, but it would be nice if Siri would allow you to do that. I would be pleased with that.
I think they would do that. That's part of their MO.
So our next headline has to do with some interesting court case, and it's something I hadn't thought about. But in New Jersey, a accused murderer won the right to check the source code of DNA testing software used by the police. Now, we've all watched CSI or something like that. We've seen a TV show or a movie where, the forensic scientists, the CSIs, use DNA testing to find a match for the criminal in their DNA and all that sort of stuff. And I never really thought about it, but all that stuff runs on software. And as we all know who use technology, software can have bugs. And how many people get convicted based on a bug in some software? That's a possibility. So this defendant, his lawyers wanted to have an expert examine the source code of the software used by the police department that arrested him. And the software maker said no, because they said, their software is a trade secret, which I would imagine would be, and there's so much of it that it would take forever to review it. So what they wanted was, they said, okay, you would have to be tightly controlled conditions, which means someone standing over your shoulder, with a non-disclosure agreement and a $1 million liability fine if any of the code got out. that was obviously the defense team objected to that, and eventually got up to an appeals court where the appeals court said, nope, you have to let him look at this software. I think that's a very fascinating aspect of this and could have wider implications for the justice system where so much technology now is involved in convictions and trials and that sort of thing. What do you think?
Well, it could be interesting, too, not just in something as serious as this, where it's genetic DNA testing, but I'm also thinking of stuff like the algorithms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube being sued because someone gets deplatformed. And, oh, by the way, you have to release your algorithm so we can see why you deplatformed us, what we triggered to cause this, especially if we think it's a case where it's an unjust deplatforming. Not the big cases, the Alex Jones and people like that, but legitimate people who are doing legitimate things. And Facebook knocks them off, Twitter knocks them off because they happen to talk about a certain virus or a certain uprising or whatever.
I hear the sound of a Pandora's box being opened.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that's what it's going to do. I mean, as one who has in the past allowed her DNA, out there, so, for Parabon and all those other places. Yeah, but I even allowed them when they said they're going to use it for, stuff like tracking criminals. I allowed it for a while. And then I started seeing some problems with that. So I pulled it out. Not that I don't want, to help the justice folks do their job, but I'm not so sure how they're using all this stuff. So I want to be a little bit more careful. So yeah, I can see they must have had a couple of geeky lawyers who said, gee, maybe we can get around this by doing this, but it will open a Pandora's box for even the legitimate ones that, somebody like C.C. Moore and Parabon have been going after these serial killers for years. I'd hate to see all of that upended because of something like this.
They did point out one instance with some experts who said that there was one piece of software that had been used in forensic analysis that had 13 coding errors that affected 60 criminal cases. So that now it doesn't mean that 60 people were wrongfully convicted, but the errors were germane to those cases, put it that way. So that's this is concerning. It's concerning, and so in fact, it's almost it's more concerning if an innocent person gets convicted and goes to jail. But it is also concerning if a criminal is let out of jail, even though they're guilty, because there was an error, a bug in the software. That is also concerning.
Well, and we've always held legally the principle of you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, if you can cast doubt on the software, that the very evidence you are sending to us that these are DNA matches. Well, we have doubt that software actually did it properly, and no, they are not DNA matches.
That's a big problem. Yes, the reasonable doubt is entered. So those are our headlines this week. I think let's move on to our picks of the week. Father Cory, you're up first. Give me something good.
So I am going way back to the dark ages, back to the old west of the internet, the year 2000. Flash was a real thing, which rest in peace, Flash. Flash died. I know and everybody who ever did any kind of IT security rejoiced on December 31st, 2020, when Flash was finally laid to rest. But in the year 2000, it was the hot thing. And a website appeared, Homestar Runner. And anybody who was really on the internet at that point, who was into like 80s and 90s retro, loved it. I mean, we watched Strong Bad Emails and all kinds of cartoons, silly Flash-based cartoons that had all kinds of little Easter eggs you could click on. Trogdor, yes. Yes. And it's just, and it's geeky, it's hilarious, I loved it. And, eventually they went on hiatus because it was done by, they call themselves the Brothers Chaps, the Chapman brothers, Mike and Matt Chapman, who actually went on to do like real TV animation. Like they actually worked on various projects for like Nickelodeon and other channels. Well, with Flash dying, they have taken a bunch of their videos, bunch of their cartoons and put them on YouTube. And so now you can watch a lot of them on YouTube, including the Easter eggs kind of in appropriate locations and everything. They've also reset Homestar Runner itself, the website, to use the Flash emulator, however you want to put it, where there is an aftermarket Flash program that lets the Flash run on the website again. It's not using actual Adobe Flash. But I bring up the YouTube channel because they recently released a new video that it's disc 4 of 12. And what it is, it's old DOS games. So the old DOS games, old DOS software. And the one they had is friendware. And I thought I, like many people, thought, oh, this is just a friendlyware. And it's like, oh, this is a fake thing. No, it's an actual real software package that came out in the early 80s for DOS PCs. And they go through it, and of course it's strong bad, so he's using his boxing gloves to type. That's one of the running jokes. How can you type with boxing gloves on? And it's just it's that their humor. It is very much, if you were a fan of homestarrunner.com, it's their humor. So go check out their YouTube channel. You can go watch that. It's hilarious. It's so much fun. And it's just, again, it's that 80s, 90s retro humor, and it's awesome. So something if you're really depressed because the weather and everything, go watch some Homestar Runner, and that'll cheer you up.
We talked about the loss of Homestar Runner when a few weeks ago when the Flash went down. So it's great to have Homestar Runner back.
They're still around.
I kind of figured, I was kind of figuring they'd show up again somehow. Joanne, what's your pick?
Well, my pick this week is, generated by what we've been discussing today. And if folks don't want to give up their iPads to their churches to use, and they don't have a benefactor that can get them a nice $10,000 system, there is a little device out there called the Mevo Start. And it is an all-in-one live streaming camera. It runs, when it first came out, it was $399. Now you can get it as low as, I think, $350. From Amazon or from Mevo themselves. And what this does, it's a live streaming camera. It's also a webcam. So you can use it in both ways. You can use it on all of the different platforms. And it has a cousin in the lineup called the Mevo Plus. But the Start is much better for those folks who are just getting into this because it's got a battery in it. And it holds about 6 hours of charge. So you could do a couple of masses and then charge it up, for during the week and then put it on again in the weekend. And it allows you through an app for either your phone or tablet to do the pan and the zoom. To do the zoom and some of the pan. Some of the pan.
Yeah.
Can't tilt, though. You have to put it on something in order to tilt and to move it around. But it's a decent priced solution for parishes that are looking for this type of thing. And it hooks on to the internet. And it'll also hook on to your phone. If you're using your phone as a hotspot, because I've suggested it for parishes that don't have internet, but they're using, their phone as a hotspot. So it's very clear. It's very easy to use. Anybody who can sit there with a phone or a tablet can play around with it. And I'm surprised at especially the older folks I've suggested to, even older than me, who have gotten the hang of it and they're actually using it for live streaming. So it's somewhere in the middle, but it's something that and you can grow with it. You can put another Start with it or put a Plus with it and have 2 cameras. So it's something to consider if you're looking at doing this thing on a longer term basis, but maybe not permanently.
Well, it looks like you can really upgrade it too, as far as like audio is concerned. It's got the input, so you can do mixer. If you've already got a mixer board set up, you can bring that in too. So that's nice.
Yeah. I tell people about that, but then I see their eyes glaze over, like they can. When I say you can put your house system through this, and they go, "Huh?" And I'm like, never mind. It's got
the big speakers up there. What you hear out of there can go in there.
It has a 3 microphone array on it, so it does pick up quite well.
And you can do Ethernet in. It's got Wi-Fi built in. Yeah, it's really nice. And then the software allows you to do. Does it do the multicam in the software from the one camera?
It will.
Yes.
If you plug another one in, it will.
I know that Mevo has I think a bigger one, which allows you to have one camera, but it almost works like 2 different cameras. You can have designated spots that are like separate cameras, like virtual cameras. So Mevo is a nice system, but this is a nice way to get started.
Yeah,
Very
I believe
nice.
that's the Plus.
All right. So my pick this week is we've talked a lot about network attached storage. Joanne, you recently picked one. I'm picking one because I recently upgraded my Synology, which was a DS216 plus 2. So 16 means it was from 2016. So it was about 5 years old, and it was a 2-bay. So I could have 2 discs in it. And so it was the redundancy was one disc to the other. So it was mirroring. I had 2 problems. I was running out of space on it. I had about 3 terabytes of space that possible, and I was starting to run out because I use this backup and all kinds of other stuff, and I use it for my Plex. And then it was also starting to get a little unreliable. It was rebooting on its own, which was not good. So I ended up upgrading to the DS420 Plus. So 20 means came out in 2020, and it's a nice system. It's 4 bays. I added 2 new hard drives to it. So I've gone from 3 terabytes to 8 terabytes of space, which is really nice. I do need to, eventually, I'll need to upgrade the oldest drive in it. So that one, my original Synology was a 1-bay that I got. And so that drive has migrated. But drives do get old and need to be replaced. And so that will need to be replaced at some point.
What is the lifespan on a drive? Would you say?
I say in general, like for a drive on the desktop, it's like an enclosure, I say 3 years is a drive. I tried to get for my NAS, as the network attached storage, I try to get enterprise quality, and those will go longer. Where it's redundant, so I'm using it in a RAID so that there's backup. I'm less concerned with a failure of a single drive in that case. So I'll try, but this drive is really old; it needs to go. One of the nice things with the Synology is it was seamless. I just grabbed the 2 drives out of the old Synology, put them in the new Synology. There's a quick wizard to get things set up, and I was ready to go. It was like as if nothing had changed. And then when I wanted to expand, I put the 2 new drives in, and I said, expand the storage pool. And it took a couple days, actually. It really goes through a very meticulous process to expand the storage pool, but it didn't require anything on my part. And then a couple days later, I went from 3 terabytes to 8 terabytes. So really nice. So I recommend it. It's not cheap. I fully acknowledge it. It's not cheap.
No, I'm in it for the long haul now because the husband has discovered how wonderful Plex can be.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something I've just got an old desktop that I've thrown a couple hard drives in. I need to get serious and get a RAID array. Maybe I'll use my tax return for that.
There you go. I know. My tax return is already being spent by. That's how it is every year. My tax return gets spent before I even get it. So that part of it is going toward paying off for this. So that's really good. All right, those are our picks, and so I hope you enjoy that. We'll put those links, of course, online. So that's just from us. What did you think of our discussion? If you have any comments you want to make on the topic of live streaming masters or anything else we discussed, you can let us know by commenting at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or you can send an email to technology@sqpn.com. You can find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes on sqpn.com. Remember to like each episode of The Secrets of Tech on our Facebook page, retweet it on Twitter where we're at SQPN, and leave comments there as well. That's a great place for interacting with us and leaving us comments. And we'd love to include your feedback and your ideas in the show. So we want to hear from you. Until next time, Father Cory Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Technology.
And thank you, Dom.
Joanne Mercier, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.